Okay, so we have a toilet here. Needs a few new parts. I'll show you what's happening here. The tank, the water level, is now passing the top of this tube. This tube actually fills the bottom of the bowl down below. And when you flush it, the flapper down here goes down that same hole, but it gives an overflow of water that makes everything flush through into the pipe. This thing here is what we call a fill valve, and it's supposed to stop when this comes to the top. It's supposed to stop filling it so that the water stops at a particular water line. In this particular toilet, the water line is here, which is just slightly below the top of that. Not very good. So we're going to upgrade this. We're going to change this so that the float is now on here. And this ball will now be gone. And the flapper below, I changed it before, so I suspect that there's not going to be a problem. But I will show you once I've changed the fill valve whether or not that flapper requires changing. First thing I'll do is turn off the toilet, the supply. Every toilet in Canada should have a shut off there. Now there always seems to be a little bit of water left in the bottom. So there's a couple of ways you can deal with it. One of them being that when you undo this, you could put a pile of rags under there and maybe grab a Tupperware container or something to grab the clean water out of there. Or you could do like me. Use a shop vac. It's wet and dry, so it will take up water. I tend to use a shop vac whenever I want to change a toilet or repair a toilet. It's much nicer when it's not all wet. So, there's a little nut underneath there. I will show you. There's a little nut right there. You undo that, and that releases the fill valve. Otherwise known as the ball cock. Yes, I'm a man, I love to say that. Usually only takes a turn or two to get it loose. You've got to be very careful though of the rubber that is part of this, because the rubber is all degraded. So that means if you touch that rubber, you will get black stuff all over you, and it will take days for it to wash off. I've not found a hand cleaner yet that takes it off. So when you purchase one of these, it will come with a kit like this. This rubber needs to be facing down to the bottom of the tank, so that goes through the hole. Now, for sizing this, there's a ring right here. It allows me to move this up and down. So what I want to do is move it up and down until I'm happy with the size. Now on this toilet we are going to be looking for a degree of low flow. But at the same time I don't want to have to come back. So what I've done is, instead of putting this float, this is a screw that raises and lowers the float, I've pushed it so that the float is all the way to the bottom. And that way, if there's not enough flush, there's not enough water to push everything through, then the customer can turn this until the float comes up higher and higher, giving more and more water to the tank. Generally, these are known as hand tightened. But the last nut, I usually take a pair of pliers too. And when I take a pair of pliers to it, I make sure that I hold the fill valve at the top. Because I want it to actually tighten. Now you get a new hose. The old hose didn't have something to attach to. So we have this new extra attachment that I will show you in a second. Of course, whenever you're working with something plastic, secure it well while you work with it. That means hold it so that it doesn't get bent too far so it cracks or breaks. Okay, so what I've done is, there's a little spigot here where I push the rubber onto. I held the valve while I pushed the rubber onto it. And this is the piece. It just slides onto that tube. Be very gentle with this tube should you ever crack it. It gives a confusing problem of excess water running down into the bowl. And you'll tend to think that it's the flapper all the time. So you'll change flapper after flapper and it won't solve the problem. It will be a crack in this tube somewhere. So be very gentle with this tube. Otherwise, make sure the chain has got just a little bit of slack for the flapper. And we're good to go. Yeah, now you can see the water, it shoots down through that tube. It's because two things are happening here. At the bottom of this fill valve, it's filling this tank. Through this tube here, it is filling some of the bowl. When it fills some of the bowl, that prevents the smell coming up from the pipes. Now this toilet has had good success, the customer tells me, with a lower than normal water line. So we've set this valve up so that it gives us a lower than normal water line. They tell me this will give us a good flush. Now, to know that the flapper is working well, you will look very closely for dents in the water, in that line of the water. If you see any denting or any streaking or any white water lines, then you know that the flapper has a problem. Now sometimes you will need to wait a few moments after a flush to ensure that all of this rim here has emptied of the water. So right now the fill valve is filling it at the bottom, is filling the bowl right through here, and then you can see the big dents in the water right now. That's from the spray. If the flapper was leaking, then you would have little tiny dents just like those. And that would tell us that we are losing water from the bowl to the, from the tank to the bowl. It might actually cause the toilet to want to refill every now and again while nobody's been near the toilet, sort of randomly. If you hear that refill every now and again, the problem is either this flapper down below, which comes off very easily. It's rubber. It's just hooked on there and hooked on there. If it's not that, then there is a crack in this tube, and then the bolts will need to be taken, the tank will need to be taken off, this tube will need to be changed. Make sense? So now the water has settled down, and you see there are no dents whatsoever. So now we have a toilet using less water, yet we're prepared in case it needs more water by how we set up that screw on the float. If you screw the screw down, it will raise the float higher, which will bring the water line up. Make sense? It's about the only way you can save money with one of these toilets, because this tank is sized appropriately for the size of the, what we call an S trap in the back here. If you try to dump too little of water, not enough water pushes through that trap, so you get plugging toilets. This is why they sell you a new toilet for a low flow experience. So, my last little trick is you take a little bit of toilet paper, you fold it over like so, you lay it down underneath the valve, and wait 10-15 minutes. If there's any dark spots, then you need to find out why you're leaking. Notice I didn't need to use a pair of pliers to tighten most of that up, except the very last nut, which is the water connection. I give an extra half a turn. Don't get excited. Don't press it, don't tighten it too much, because this is plastic, so you'll break it. So we'll wait our 10 minutes or so. And as you can see, there are no dark spots on our toilet paper. And it is directly under the valve, which is directly under the connection. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.